I mentioned, my name is Ken Turba. I'm the project architect on the team. I work for Plunkett Research Architects out of Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm also the local expert on the team. I was born and raised in the area, graduated from MASH back in 1999, and it's really fun for me to be, Rachel, really fun to be back in the school and walking around these hallways and seeing what's changed and what hasn't changed. So Nathan's and Findorf's job was to physically look at the maintenance side of the building. You know, what is it going to take the cost to keep it running as is? Our job as the architecture team is to come in and evaluate your classrooms. How do students flow from classrooms? How are the classrooms being used? Is it working with your current curriculum? What is the future of your curriculum? And how does that impact the current spaces that you have? We have a little bit of a process that we go through to evaluate that. We do a facility assessment, just like Nathan. We walked around the entire school, looked at every room, captured the sizes of each room, and documented all that in the facility assessment. We do what's called a day in the life, where me and two other teammates came out here and spent the whole day here from morning drop-off to evening pickup, and watched the students interact, how they transfer from space to space, see how the teachers are teaching in the classrooms. Also that day we sat down with staff, admin, and did interviews, got all their input from all the department heads, from arts, athletics, teaching, front office, special education, and IT even. So we kind of gathered all that information, pulled it together, and put a report together that documents what we felt the deficiencies were with this school, as well as from a space-wise, and also kind of documented what the needs of the school district are to continue their current curriculum as well as move forward into the future. So what we found here is a little bit of a list here I got going for you. One of the main things we noticed is the need for security upgrades. Right now, parking's majority's out there. Kids enter from every direction. They can exit from every direction. There's a hard time keeping visuals on people and tabs on where people are going. So that's one of the things we would look to address. Undersized spaces. So I'll kind of give you some resources in a minute, but we evaluate all the classrooms based on square footage. For certain classroom sizes, we're supposed to be around 800 square feet to house around 22 to 26 max students per classroom. A lot of the classrooms in here range in between 600 and 700 square feet. So we're a little undersized for how many kids we want to put in these classrooms, which kind of limits us a little bit. We're also lacking lab spaces, so like biology labs, science labs. We want to be around 1,400 square feet. We have a couple in here that are around that. We do have a couple that are around 1,000 square feet, so we're a little tight again on space to allow proper class sizes and allow them to do what they need to do in a classroom. We heard, the auditorium. You can't do a school function in here. You can't, the community can't really use it for maze or MAMs or anything to bring a program in. Gymnasium space, so like for sports, winter and fall sports, when weather's bad outside, there really isn't much room in here for people or students to bring their practices inside, so it's kind of tight. So lack of need to improve adjacency of spaces school-wide. So just, again, we'll get into that a little bit later on what I'm talking about in terms of adjacencies and the kind of spaces we're looking for. Lack of office space for staff. We have athletic staff and secretarial staff spread out throughout the building in little closets, not up front where they need to be to interact with their coworkers. Lacks of flexibility and collaboration spaces. So again, we'll get into this later, but doing something in the classroom, I saw students out in the hallway trying to do group work. Lack of storage, which even in a new building, that's always an issue, and lack of natural daylight in many classrooms. So obviously the lower level lacks access to daylight. So again, like I said, there are a few resources out there if you ever wanted to look at it, because we're not making this up. We do have text and research done that we're following that kind of indicates you know, what are we comparing? What tells us that an 800 square foot classroom is the right size? So this is what we're kind of basing our stuff off. Our office kind of leans on this text, Blueprint for Tomorrow, redesigning schools for student-centered learning. So as it says, we're looking from a shift from traditional classrooms to learning communities. So I'd actually like to invite up here Laura Lundy, the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, to kind of help me talk through this next part, as I want to help you understand what I see as a professional and then what the district is seeing and what they're trying to do. Educational programming today is moving towards innovative ways of teaching. So what I see when I talk to other school districts, what I see when I visit schools, is that things aren't the same. Things aren't the way it was 20 years ago when I was here, where it was a static classroom. We sat in rows. Teachers stood at one end of the room and taught us. What I'm seeing now is spaces like these, where their students are getting instruction. They are sent into groups to work, and then come together as in the end, a report out. So they're just finding different ways to interact with the students on a group level, on an individual or smaller group level, and then an individual level even. So with that, Laura, what are you seeing here in the MASH, where you were before, where you are now, and where you're looking to go?
Yeah, so what we see is we're asking our community, our employers, what do you want from our students? And what we hear is we want our students to work together. We want them to be able to work on in a team. We want them to be able to analyze a problem and do some problem solving. And as Ken said, you know, one teacher talking to the students, they regurgitate the information on the test, is not exactly what employers want. So in order for us to do that, we really have been teaching our teachers to have a variety of instructional methods. And one of those is, yes, you still deliver the information. So you may see a teacher at the front of the room delivering information to the whole class, but then the whole class period is not that. It is also then breaking them up into groups to work on problem solving. So you'll see this area on our right-hand side. That's our collaborative space that we created when we took our computer labs out. So all of our students have Chromebooks now, which are little laptops, and so we don't need a computer lab. So instead we made a large space where students can work together. And you'll also see that there's flexible movement in the furniture, so those can be broken apart, they can be put together, versus having just desks. And so our teachers are working with what we have currently. If you go into the classrooms, you'll see desks put together, and sometimes not. And so what we're looking for is just really that flexibility for all of those different learning environments.
So, like Laura discussed, you know, they're looking at a personalized approach to teaching, a variety of teaching and learning styles. So every student has a different way they like to learn and understand. Sometimes it's on an individual basis, sometimes it's on a group basis. Active and flexible spaces and furniture, again, getting the kids up and moving around a little bit, allowing the classroom to free flow as it needs to from day to day. Some days it might need to be in a row, some days it might not be. That's what this flexible furniture allows them to do in classrooms. And then it's project-based learning. So again, it's getting to that level of, we're preparing these students for the workplace. And what we're hearing from the workplace is, we want people that work well together. We want people that can work in a group, can collaborate, can take a task, work together, and get some output for us. So we kind of do that in a couple of different ways, the way we kind of set up the classroom. We call these kind of 4 stations: a campfire, which is where the teacher would give the main instruction. We have the watering hole, where peers can share information. So again, they're going to get tasked by the teacher. They're going to go into these groups and problem solve and work together to get the right answer. And then there's caves where they can, if they need to, after that, take some time to reflect, journal, whatever the classroom requires for that. And then finally, life. You know, how do they take that out into the real world with them? So Laura, actually, you kind of are implementing that right now. I just saw a YouTube video at the last board meeting of that with your math class. Is that correct? Is that typical for all your classrooms, or is that?
Yes, so we have asked all of our teachers to create visible learners that really have those skills, that they can work on their own, they can work with other people, they understand the goal of the learning. So we have all of these different ways that we want our teachers to work with students. And you'll see it if you go into the elementary school, and you'll see at the middle school, they can really do a lot with it because their rooms are bigger. So Ken was saying that at the high school, if you go into the classrooms, they are undersized. And so to have all of these different areas in a classroom is very difficult.
So this is the existing classroom. Again, it was a tiered kind of lecture hall that we transformed into those different learning spaces for the school. So they have movable desks. Again, they can be put in a row to get the instruction for the day, but then they can turn them right around and put them in groups, or they can break out into these more little private group areas. So we're going to kind of go through some examples where we show what's currently at MASH. So this is one of the smaller English classrooms. You see it's pretty tight in there. What is your current student enrollment in classes, or what is your goal?
We try to stay right around 20, 25, but we do have, like in our social studies classrooms, freshmen, it's upwards of 35 in a classroom.
So this is what's currently there, and what's on to the right is kind of a renovated space where we can take this space and do some new finishes, new upgrades, change out the furniture, and achieve a little bit more free-flowing space. We also can accomplish this by opening up walls to adjacent classrooms. These are just some more examples of different collaboration spaces, different types of seating. So, and this one is actually a great example of what we could do on the interior. So, if we wanted to change the library, it could be open to the hallways, can bring in some natural light through a skylight, and kind of lighten up that area and make it more of a spill-out space for the students from the exterior classrooms.
I think one thing on that last slide too, those were both renovations. So it doesn't always have to be new to have this type of format.
Next is the Forest High School, kind of showing some examples of newer tech rooms. Again, just cleaning up the space. This was an addition, so they built it the way they wanted to, so they can do a proper layout for equipment, so they have proper flow and movement of materials for doing their projects. And then on the right, they implemented the agriculture program, so they have live cattle and livestock on site for learning, just similar to what you have over at the barn.
And I think too, one of the things that we're noticing on projects where a district double down on tech ed, or STEAM or STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, math, if it's STEM, and STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, or agriculture and math. So this is DeForest. We also have several other examples where their enrollment in their tech ed programs has increased significantly. I know in DeForest it increased almost half. The most increase was in females, and Middleton Cross Plains was the same. So by investing in some of these spaces, they were allowing kids more opportunities. Maybe it was more inviting because it had daylight, or because the space was better, but they are all tracking that those numbers have increased.
So when we're looking at these spaces, what we're trying to achieve, these are kind of examples of what we're trying to achieve, of some things we can achieve even in an existing building. Is that, so what we can see here, that this is classroom wing on the exterior wall, kind of wraps around here, and then this is the main corridor access space to these classrooms, but they carved out a collaboration space. So again, they can break out of the classrooms and do little group projects. Another example of things we do is open up walls between classrooms. So we try to put similar classrooms next to each other, so if they wanted to, that we could use a sliding barn door or a partition wall that we can open up between the classrooms so they can share resources.
So this is Mayville High School, and we have this on here just to show you what additions might look like at a school. So at Mayville, they had a bus barn that they no longer use, so over here. So what they ended up doing is filling it in with an addition underneath, and then brought it out and brought it up, and that's where their new tech ed and STEAM area is. And then they also added a fitness center to the right, but it's an existing building where they renovated and invested in what their community felt were priorities for them. But certainly they had the space on their site that they could do that.
Another example of an existing building that was added onto, so most of this white roof is all existing. This is Indian Mountain Middle School. They needed extra classrooms. Again, they were trying to build these learning communities, getting classrooms on exterior walls and having collaborative space in the middle. And so these pods were built on classrooms around the outside, and then in the center here are those collaborative spaces where they can spill out. It's open visually with glass from the classroom to those spaces, so there's still teacher supervision, but the students can go out there and do their project work. Looking at the tech ed spaces here at MASH, this is the current metals area. Pretty tight. The way it's laid out, there's some visual supervision issues for these welding booths here. There's it's kind of a U-shaped circulation space that makes it a little bit hard to see. Machinery is pretty tight. Over here is an example of that Mayville High School where they did that addition. They were able to lighten up the space, get natural light in there, clean it up, and space out the equipment appropriately so that the students aren't on top of each other. Can kind of see here that there's somebody grinding as people are walking by and sparks are flying. So
the question was, do all students get these opportunities or just the A students? And it would be all students. So I think what you're referring to is our collaborative spaces. We have a study hall system. Is that what you're asking? And so if you're in guided study hall, you are put in a classroom where you have to work with a teacher. And if you have C's or above, you have the ability to go during your study hall to different spaces, and one of them being the collaborative space. It would be available to everybody because it would be a classroom, not a study hall situation.
So to piggyback on that, Laura, is that our goal when we're looking at renovating this space or even adding on new spaces is that we're creating these spaces within groups of classroom. Right now, Medford did a great job. They found a need, they knew what they needed, and they gave up some classroom space to create those collaboration areas. But they're not ideally where we would want to put them. We would want to take a couple classrooms and surround it around one of those collaborative spaces, whether it's taking out a classroom in between two classrooms and then they kind of share, or like if we do an addition, we're building classrooms around the exterior and having a center space that is used for that.
So the question is, in other districts that we've worked, when it came down to manufacturing communities, did those manufacturers step up and either invest money into new facilities, and how were they involved just to say that this is what we need and here's where we're willing to put our money? Is that the question? Mayville, as you saw, is a very strong manufacturing community, and their community did step up. I know they donated a lot of equipment. They still went to referendum to get the dollars to build the space, but the space was built based on their feedback, their input, their willingness to work with the students on a one-on-one basis, but they did do some financial donations after, including equipment. So their community also was part of their facility study and all of that. So I would say yes, and Mayville is a great example that we shared. That community did really step up in a big way. Yeah, I would agree. We just helped Madison College, it's a tech college, revamp their entire campus using these principles. So I would say that even on the tech side, in their police academy, in their business area, collaboration spaces just like what you're seeing here. And as far as studies, I know there are studies that you can read and find, and I think we can link some onto the district's website that can help you appreciate the value that some of these spaces can provide for education and just getting those kids college and career ready post-high school. So the question is about enrollment. So current and future enrollment, how is that being factored into what you're about to see as far as potential renovations and additions? Is that something that's unique to Medford, or is it something that we look at statewide? I don't know if you want to take it, but I certainly. So current enrollment and future enrollment, there is a sheet on all of your tables that talks about enrollment, and it goes back to, Pat, what, 1967? 1970. So you're going to see past enrollment, you're going to see current enrollment, and what we're tracking in the future, because you see who's in kindergarten and how many students that is, it's almost equal to what the senior class is. So future enrollment seems to be very steady and consistent in Medford. And so what you're seeing and hearing in a moment is going to take into consideration the future enrollment as well. Because the district has made an intent to plan for the future and be very proactive. So it does take that future into consideration.